Well, hello everybody. Here we are back again with another video about the post 2024 election political situation and all those kind of things. And we have a special guest with us today, and she'll tell you who she is in a second. But I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology. I write every day on Substack, but I also have a Substack membership. And I also have YouTube memberships that tie into that with a once a month Ask Me Anything call, as well as a private membership. Kathy.
I'm Kathy Beal. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. I have weekly, new moon, full moon, monthly forecasts on both of those places. And at my Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Beal, I have a 45 to 60-second daily quickie forecasts. Yes, they're smart ass and they focus your day. And they're wildly, insanely popular. Go figure. And I'm very happy to pass to our guest, Dabney Lawless, please.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Yeah, I'm Dabney Lawless. I am an evolutionary astrologer. I also have a YouTube channel. I talk about some similar themes to Kathy and Louise. So that's Lawless Astrology. And, I teach classes. And right now I'm on a little bit of a waiting list for readings, but I'm about to launch a beginner foundations class. So all that information, I'm sure I can get over to Louise.
And I have name envy, by the way, for your last name.
I married into it. I wasn't born into it. So I have my husband to thank for that one.
I know, but it's so perfect for what we do.
That's right. We're all lawless astrologers because we are not going to take this. What's coming? What's happening? Show them your shirts.
Oh,
We're both wearing Petrify the Patriarchy.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we're
not sitting down taking it.
And that's what we're going to do today, because Saturn and Uranus and Mars are all speaking to each other. So we're going to take the patriarchy down. But anyway, Kathy's going to do her usual roundup quickly. So.
And I'll do this in categories. I like to talk about how our forecasts have played out in the news. And we've said that March 15th, that lunar eclipse with Saturn in play and with Uranus also in play, more about that later today, has rolling repercussions, and also the Aries Libra eclipses restructuring our commitments and relationships. So we have massive realignments going on. The Canadian Prime Minister has said that the days of economic and military cooperation between Canada and the US are over. Macron is calling for a boycott of the US. There's the move afoot in Australia to bar the current administration from stepping foot in the country and all of his relatives. And Mexico responded to the tariffs, which we'll talk about, not by putting new ones in, but saying that Mexico is going to find new trade partners. So new alliances, restructuring agreements. The eclipses are continuing, especially Saturn's role in it, continuing to play out. Courts blocking so many of the actions of this administration and ordering fired employees back in, reinstating them, overturning. There's a contempt motion under consideration in the case of people who being sent to El Salvador after a court said turn the flight around, and statements by that judge have yesterday indicated he's very strongly in favor of sanctioning the Department of Justice attorneys in that. On March 15th, although we didn't find out about it until Mercury met the sun, there was the signal chat with war plans and more, and that is just rolling. The Department of Defense Inspector General has opened an investigation. More on that in a minute. We have been consistently saying that information is going to come from Europe and circle back and head here. Well, German intelligence has been looking, or did a lot of looking online of the people who were in that chat, found email addresses, phone numbers, Venmo accounts with eggplant emojis. Look up what that means. And they passed it on to Germany's Der Spiegel, which is equivalent to like Time or Newsweek, and including that Pete Hegseth has a Russian email address. And there's information that Michael Waltz, one of the people in that, has multiple signal chats going on. And there is a well-grounded theory that the breaking of the news about all of this, and particularly the places that they went, are an indication of a collective deep throat in Defense Department military intelligence taking these people down. And we have consistently said the military plays a big role in all of this. So that's quickly some of what has been going on. There's a whole lot more.
And that could start to emerge today with some of the aspects we're going to talk about.
Oh my God, yes.
Mercury, especially. But there's also a petition in the UK to ban Trump from a visit that is planned there too. So, I'll go Britain. Anyway.
So what we always like to say here are the things to watch for in the next week. There's a big cluster of aspects working today, April 4, that Louise will go into in great detail, and I want to hear what Dabney has to say about these. And this involves Mars, which is now direct in a trine or a flow with Saturn, planet of adulting, order, consequences, the government, and both of them in an opportunity aspect to Uranus, the disruptor, the awakener, the realigner. Pause button. One other thing we did say that when March ended, the energy would shift dramatically. And I challenge any of you in the United States to say that it did not. And we will discuss partially why with Neptune's shift into Aries. We'll get into that. So anyway, pause button back up, more on the aspects. This weekend, there will be a real expansive feel with people really wanting more and more and more. Venus and Mars are going to be in a cooperative aspect, and the Sun will be in a sextile or an opportunity aspect with Jupiter, who's the guy who wants more of everything. So we've got all this indulgent. I expect the streets to be filled this weekend as a consequence. Next week is really, really big because the two interplanet retrogrades turn around. First, Mercury stations direct on the 7th as Venus is meeting with Saturn. We'll have a lot to say about that. That's a put a ring on it, be an adult, commitment, or maybe a boot on the throat, we'll see, moment. And then Venus later in the week stations direct on the 12th. And
just 40 minutes after the full moon.
And there is a full moon in Libra ruled by Venus with Venus in an adjustment aspect to the moon. So next week is all about turning around, shifting, things having to shift back and forth, tweaking, and know that when planets move into the retrograde station, the lower, the inner ones, it's going to feel like we're just floating. But floating in air means you have the opportunity to see what is floating in front of you. So I expect we will see quite a lot next week. All right.
Yeah.
Anything, either if you want to add to what you see happening with the transits in the atmosphere?
Can I just sum up the Mars, Saturn, Uranus, so we don't kind of go into that individually a little bit? So today they're all speaking to each other. Mars in Cancer, Uranus in Taurus, and Saturn in Pisces, and Venus, of course, is close by as well. Mercury, all that in Pisces. But the cycle, so synodic cycles where the two planets met and began their cycle. The biggest cycle is the Saturn-Uranus one, and that began in 1988 when Reagan was president, when we began trickle-down economics, the wall came down, all those kind of things. But that began at 27 degrees Sagittarius, which is on the galactic center, which I use, but more importantly for now, it's square to the moon's nodes, where they have sat right through the eclipses. So that's and we'll look at the actual degrees and the aspects as how they affect all the charts, unless you want to say anything about that, Dabney, because you and I work with the nodes a lot. So
yeah, no, I think that you're right on in the sense that, we've got a lot of repeating karma, and, you see now that the Senate just pushed out, the sort of fast track of the tax cuts for the billionaires. And so but there is this Libra full moon coming up. There's going to have to be some negotiations because the House isn't happy with it, because they want even more draconian cuts to anything that benefits people other than billionaires. So yeah, so I think that that's definitely some karma playing out, and I'd be interested to see how close that is to the US rising. But yeah, I would also echo what Kathy said too about Neptune and Aries, how there was just kind of this overnight shift where I'm getting ready to do a video that's surviving, because the S is hitting the fan, and it's we're all kind of under this collective wake up. It's nice to actually have a break from the Pisces a little bit, to see what's have the fog clear a little.
And this Saturn, Uranus Mars mini grand trine, which it is, it speaks to me of resilience and drive, because it's a very in earth and water. It's kind of just stay the pace, don't freak out, yeah, just keep doing what you can, all club together, come together, do what you can. So yeah.
I'd like to add two things to that. And the first is anybody who's ever had their house flooded knows the power of water. Water finds its way. It can destroy everything. It can just take over and reshape hard rock, including every object in your home. And secondly, Mars, which has been retrograde, is now traveling through part of the sky that it was in late October and early in January. And with it moving into a trine to Saturn, we can move forward, stabilize, do something with, maybe in a shocking or unexpected way, with Uranus as part of the equation. Something could move forward, and there could very well be noise, breakthroughs, shocking bits of information about the role of technology, maybe in late October. There is and maybe we'll see more of what, if there is a collective deep throat within the Defense Department, maybe we'll see more coming out of them. And there's also a statement running around, but I don't know how, I can't tell if there's validity behind the accounts, but there's more and more of a noise on social media that there are disgruntled employees and ex-employees of Starlink who are going to Congress to make a deal to talk about what they did in October. So we'll see. Maybe that is, maybe that isn't, but this particular configuration is certainly an invitation for it to just kind of break into the consciousness.
It is. And of course, Mars is gaining speed now after the retrograde. And, so things are opening up in action. And the Saturn-Uranus sextile is an ending of things that began or this beginning of the end of things that began in 88, really. So, anyway, whose chart shall we look at first? The good news?
Yeah, let's start with Cory.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as soon as he went on the floor, I ran a chart for when his speech started, and he's my senator.
So what time was his?
Started at 7 o'clock on
March 31st, wasn't it?
Yeah. So he took us from March into April, and there are a number of things that are just astonishing about his chart. He said he was going to disrupt Senate business for as long as his body held out. There are two indicators of disruption in this. The first is that Neptune at 0 Aries in his second house of values is exactly opposite Uranus in
The
his
great
natal chart.
disruptor.
So
Yeah.
that's disruption, and disruption 2 is that look down in his 4th house, Uranus in the sky on his
Mercury.
Mercury. So he was speaking in terms of, here are the actual
Mhm.
physical, concrete. Let me show you. I have receipts, binders and binders that his staff put together of things that have actually been happening to people.
Yep. Yep.
A couple of other things, and then I will yield the floor. Transiting Mercury. Oh, in my chart, it's at 28. Interesting. In my chart, it shows him with a 28 degree. At any rate, that pile up in Pisces is on his north node.
I don't know which chart you mean. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, so he's in the way my software runs it, his node is at 28 Pisces, which would have Mercury exactly on it. But at any rate, it's close. It's there. So he was speaking out to the masses. He was a voice for universal suffering.
Maybe you use the mean calculation.
Oh, I
Use it for
and the solar eclipse this weekend was on his Venus at 10 degrees Aries, and the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrogrades started from that position. So I'm betting his staff has been gathering information for the entire month of March to pull this together. That's just a few things.
And he's an Aries Venus star point, because I work with the Venus star points as well. And he was born with a Venus retrograde, which makes him one of the rarest birds, because Venus spends the least time retrograde of all the planets. Anyway, Dabney, you dive in.
Okay. So one of the things that stood out to me, obviously, that Uranus on the Mercury was huge. That's disruption, that's change, that's ready to challenge the status quo in the way that he communicates. But what is also interesting is it's right on the nadir, it's on the lowest point of the chart. And the 4th house not only is our family of origin, but it's also our country of origin. It's ruled by Cancer, which is a very patriotic sign. So there was some element of this, like, he felt it was his duty to do something radical and different in the way he communicated on behalf of his country. The other thing that I notice is that in his 3rd house, his sun is in Taurus conjunct an Aries Saturn in the 3rd house. Okay, so here we have his sun, his ego function, who he believes himself to be. He is somebody who has stayed. He is somebody that cares about security. He wants to be safe. He wants to be secure. He is not a real rabble rouser, but that Saturn there in Aries is pushing that Taurus sun and saying, like, you've got the perseverance, you've got the long haul drive to make change, to initiate things. It's in the 3rd house of communication. So like here, he broke the record that was held by an incredibly horrible racist Strom Thurmond. And so, he said it got under his skin that was the man who held the record for the filibuster. And so, here's this sort of Aries activation, record breaking, and the perseverance to make it happen. And then the last thing that I just wanted to highlight, well, actually, that's interesting too. His Pluto just crossed into his 1st house, in November. It's right there. So he's come out of a period of tremendous, anytime you have a Pluto transiting your 12th house, there's so much work being done on an unconscious level. There are so many kind of fated things that are happening in destiny to propel you forward, but you're not necessarily always conscious of it. And then when that Pluto emerges into a new sign, you have a new vision, and his new vision, which is Aquarius, is in his 1st house about himself. So stepping into his power in such a new way. And that correlates so nicely with this, like you said, this pileup, but including the transiting north node in Pisces is right opposite his natal Jupiter. And so that
Mhm.
transiting south node is activating that Jupiter, but the transiting north node and in his natal Jupiter are saying like, it's time to take a bigger role. It's time to break free from some of your past karma, because that his Jupiter is, wow, look at that. His Jupiter is right next to his south node too. And so there is something here about in that second house, like, feeling confident enough in himself with Pluto coming across, and like, it's activating him into his north node, into his destiny, into where he's supposed to be going.
Yeah, and this opposition between, the Virgo, his south node, Jupiter, and Pluto really all conjunct, and Uranus pretty much conjunct too. I think he's kind of brought all of his kind of whatever you want to call it, karma dharma into it. I don't necessarily speak about the nodes the way a lot of traditional astrologers do now, but in the eighth house, this is coming from deep within. And I just want to share something, that I love about him that I think is very Virgo Pisces as well, is that he is an intermittent faster. These are his words. I'm an intermittent faster. So he says his strategy was to stop eating on Friday, so this was Monday. So he fasted for 3 days and got himself into ketosis. And then he said he felt the shift where suddenly he gets more energy, more clarity, and more focus. And I can guarantee that does that, fasting. And then he stopped drinking water the day before as well, so that he was completely fasting. And that's cleansing, the Virgo Pisces. That's kind of like that almost spiritual cleansing out my body so I can do this kind of thing. So I love how mundane things can show up in the astrology too. I think of Virgo as holistic health in many ways, and Pisces is very cleansing and the spiritual kind of purpose. And fasting has been used in so many spiritual communities to bring you to this higher level of sense of purpose, if you like. And he's got that North Node in Pisces, which is very much about spiritual purpose, I would say.
And I have to just interject that I'm super excited to learn that his Virgo moon is the exact degree of my Virgo moon. So pretty awesome to have a Virgo moon in the 7th house, because this is somebody who actually genuinely does care about service. So, we're so used to politicians being so just all about the theater and the narcissism, or like just, self-service, versus, a moon in the 7th house in Virgo. There is something there about genuinely caring about others.
And the Virgo Pisces nodes as well, I think, as well, and all of that. And I got so mad about it, some of the press going, oh, he's positioning himself to take over from Schumer, or he's going to do this. And I'm like, no, I really don't think so. I really just felt.
And even if he is, okay, let's just say even if he is, then it's
Well,
still
it may be a part of it, but I don't.
it's a service to his country on some level. Like, he's seeing how people are angry, people want new leadership, people want people to do something, and here's a motive. He's motivated, and he was. I love that you brought up, like, he went into ketosis and, like, he planned it all. That's such a, like, Virgo moon thing to do, such a planner.
Isn't it? I know. And he obviously planned it with the others that came in and asked the questions as well to keep it rolling along. But it was all very well planned, I think. So.
Well,
and that leadership emerging with the 11th house Mars, he's gonna be a leader in this new world.
One thing that that really struck me while he was talking, apart from the fact that almost 24 hours into it, he was still spewing genuine outrage and anger. Like, the energy coming off him was astonishing. He used phrases that absolutely play out the astrology. So I already mentioned, he said he was going to disrupt, and we have Uranus, the disruptor, exactly touching two things from two directions in his chart. Secondly, he kept saying this is a moral moment. Mercury in Pisces on top of the North Node, and with the Venus there too as well. And he said the most beautiful expression of what I have been saying, the challenge of the handover from the Aries Libra to the Virgo Pisces eclipses is, and that is fierce self-determination in an interdependent universe. And he said, I wrote it down, rugged individualism did not defeat the Nazis. He basically said we have to all be together, even if we're individuals. And
that was kind of, well, for me, because I do the Venus retrograde class and all this Pisces Aries stuff, that's kind of the core message of this whole period, I think, that what we're emerging from. Yeah, he spoke it, you know.
Well, and also it's almost like he was channeling, right?
Well,
that's sort of the feeling of the Pisces North Node being activated, and you know, having that
and showing his compassion, and you know, he cried multiple times.
And he built connections with each person who asked a question. He started with explaining their connection and their friendship and what they are together. And afterwards, he talked to one political commentator who has her own channel, whose last name was also Booker. And he said he felt the ancestors there with him. He felt the ancestors with him.
Well, that's his nodal return as well, right? As well as this fourth house things.
Well, and also he was obviously someone really powerful in a past life, with that South Node in the 8th house, with right there with Uranus and Pluto and Jupiter. You know, he's somebody who actually was quite powerful. So this is kind of an interesting way to see him using the information and his power in a new way.
And so I'm in a political action group in northern New Jersey that has been, people have been wondering, where is Cory? Ever since the inauguration, Andy Kim, the other senator, has had town halls. People have found where he was, and Cory was silent. People were getting really frustrated, like, what's the deal? I never got through to, I've not gotten through to a staffer in his office during this administration. And believe me, I call a lot. Well, and he surfaced like he's making up for lost time. He was doing the groundwork. He was doing something else. With Pluto in that adjustment aspect to his moon, he kind of like had to. And the man is known for extraordinary acts of simple service. When he was mayor of Newark, and there are a lot of people who still have many bad feelings because of things that happened then with budget cuts, etc. So he's a complicated character in New Jersey politics. However, he was known, if it snowed, he showed up with shovels and he shoveled out old people's driveways. He was on the street, always doing things, active, tangible acts of service. That's one thing that characterizes him. And his social media accounts, on a daily basis, he sits and he's just sitting in front of the camera and he's giving messages of compassion and unity consistently, often while he's jogging.
And that's so Virgo, isn't it? It's like chop wood, carry water, doing all that kind of stuff. And you know, to me, this is also this whole Virgo Pisces axis that we're going through right now with so much on it, is stop expecting perfectionism from those we elect, because they are human. Let go of that, you know, like over idealistic kind of vision of, if they didn't vote this one way that you like, then, you know, that's them cancelled. I'm sorry, it's a bit of my bugbear at the moment, but anyway, Virgo Pisces is meaningful service in many ways, and they won't do everything that you want, you know, nobody can.
Dabney, you're looking really intently. I have one more to say, but I want, if you have something else, I don't want to stop you.
Dive in.
We need to move on, but like I was just looking at the ruler of the South Node being Mercury in the 4th house, and then, you know, the synchronicity of Uranus being right on his Mercury, and having a nodal return, and then Pluto in Aquarius right on his Aquarius ascendant. And so for people who are not astrologers, why that's all kind of popping off as a story to me is like, this is all so karmic for him. Like this is all just really, really part of what he was meant to be doing. And it'll be really interesting to see what he does next. But on this particular day, there was something very destined about what he did, and it shifted the narrative within the Democratic Party about actual action versus like, well, we can't do anything, So anyway, that's where the furrowed brow, I'm like popping off ideas. So, but I know we should.
Well, I have one more thing, and this is what I think. All of this is fascinating that we've discussed, but my personal biggest takeaway out of this is that he ignited Neptune in Aries. People, all kinds of astrologers have been saying, oh, Neptune in Aries was the last in Aries before the Civil War. All these horrible things are going to happen. And yes, there's some, but he set a fire. He lit dynamite for spiritual warriorism.
Yes.
I mean, he christened what this could mean for the U.S. and it's on the very bottom of the U.S. chart. It's right at the doorway on the IC, right at the doorway to the fourth house of our experience of country and homeland. And it just woke everybody up with, it's a new day. I actually posted, I feel like I woke up in America this morning on April 1st with what he was doing, to have someone saying, hey, here's the reality of what is happening. Bam, 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 bam. So he christened Neptune in Aries, as far as I am concerned. This is the
potential of Neptune in Aries. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Completely spiritual warrior. And I see more people are going to rise up and kind of follow him. And they did. They supported him. Some of the people we've already looked at on our calls. But, but even Schumer, who even though he got called out in the 25-hour thing, he came at the end and supported. And I'm going to cry. I'm sorry. Well, bear in mind,
it's definitely inspirational. I would definitely say I kept hearing from people, because people know I love politics. People were like, "Oh, exactly." And then, I was like, "Wow, I didn't even know you cared."
I cried multiple times when I was watching it, but Dabney and I share the same ascendant degree, so all this Pisces Virgo is square all of that for us. So. Anyway, who shall we go on to next? Because, there's loads more we could add, but, just man of the moment, really.
There are two events that happened on the same day with that mini grand trine at play in them. And I don't know what order you want to do it. Do you want to,
whichever.
the Department of Defense IG opening an investigation?
Shall I look at that investigation chart then?
Because there's a bunch of stuff going on here. Mini grand trine. First off, there's a T-square to the moon. Information.
Oh, and look where the moon was. Oh, it was exactly opposing the degree of where Uranus and Saturn last met in 1988.
There are no coincidences.
There are no coincidences ever.
So that mini grand trine you talked about has Uranus, the shocking, startling, whatever, in the house of the executive, with backroom, supposedly hidden stuff going on. Mars in Cancer opposing Saturn in the 8th. Open enemy.
Opposing Saturn in the 8th. Sorry, no, trine.
Trining Saturn in the 8th. Sorry. Open enemy.
With Venus there as well, and I'm going to say that, that was also, that's going to kind of reveal more things that were hidden, more secrets and things, but it's also causing some of the chaos, Venus with, money and tariffs and things like that. But But as far as the Inspector General opening the report on that chart, I think that bodes really well for in uncovering a lot of stuff.
Alice is that Eris? Eris is square Mars.
Oh yeah, Eris is in
Okay.
the mix to
This is
disrupt.
not going away. Okay, bottom line, those of you out there who are saying you're talking too much astrology, this is not going away. It's not going away. It's not going away.
So I have a question. I don't know if either of you ladies know this, but can the Inspector General be fired by,
Of course he can.
So, I don't want to interject pessimism, but there's all that 8th house and the 12th house Mars, I just wonder if the cover up, but I do believe ultimately the truth will prevail, especially with this chart with the sun in Aries and Neptune just entering Aries. But I think there could be some action taken behind the scenes for sure.
If it's entirely possible they'll fire him, but won't that alert people even more to the fact that they don't want any investigating?
Remember, I said the German intelligence decided it was going to go after all these people and started spilling information that it was finding, and we've got Eris in the 9th house of foreign dealings directly pressuring Mars, hidden stuff. So it's not going to stop the information flow. And we may still have more coming out of Europe because of this. I can give a timeline. Let's talk about some things that are about to happen. We have Venus at 26 degrees Pisces, and she's retrograde. On April 7th, she is going to have a conjunction with Saturn in the 8th. Now, maybe that's when the executive says nope and tries to shut this down. There will be something big on that date, but it's retrograde. And that's also the day that Mercury stations direct. So 2 things going on. The first retrograde, having to do with information, starts its turnaround while Venus meets her first containing, restricting contact with Saturn. Venus sits at that spot until April 17th. So it's going to sit at 24 Pisces until at 24 Pisces in a sextile to Uranus, watering that ground, doing God knows what. It'll sit there until April 17th. And she has another conjunction with Saturn on the 24th. So, and she also rules, so I think those are important dates, the 7th, and then the 7th through the 17th, and then the 24th. Those are just dates look at that.
Yes, it's at 27 degrees. Oh, what a surprise. Where the nodes were, and square where the moon was on that day too. So I think even, Saturn, yes, could bring like the pessimistic side, at least attempting to fire the Inspector General or firing him, but I don't think it will go away either, like Kathy's.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be another scandal, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm not as trusting that they're not going to try.
Oh no, of course they're going to try something.
Oh.
And would the courts get involved if Saturn's part of it? Who knows?
Right. Yeah, and then
look where the sun is on that day.
Yeah.
On the midheaven of the date he kind of launched it. So
April's another big month. Boy, always some surprises coming at us.
And Jupiter is 1 degree away from passing the degree that they station direct at, retrograde at as well then. So.
And Jupiter in the chart of the investigation starting is on Trump's Uranus. And don't tell me
that's his
son. Yeah.
Well, and this is on his whole eclipse energy. Yes, exactly. And as I unfortunately know, having my sun at the same degree as his moon. So Yeah,
More
so
to come, more to come. Doesn't matter what
more to
shenanigans they
come.
pull, this is not going away.
No. And so next chart,
Tariffs.
tariffs. Let's look at tariffs.
Now that these happened the same day, so there's a lot of up in the sky that is the same, but it's down below. Look at this pain for the country, isolating the country.
Oh my
We
God.
didn't hear that on the campaign trail about pain for the country. Well, that
I
got
know.
glossed over, didn't it?
Hmm. And this, well, I mean, there's loads we could say about this, but all this pile up in the fourth house, basis of security, the country, all that kind of stuff.
Just
Just
dissolving
speaks
it,
to me,
disintegrating.
dissolving it, and people feeling really fearful and insecure because of all the Pisces there as well. Mhm.
And then isn't that like interesting too, that Pluto's in the second house where it is in the US Sibley chart as well.
Mhm.
Yes. Hmm. And quite close to the south node of the US now, because that's at 6 Aquarius.
So that would definitely be like a reckoning around our finances
Oh.
and a relationship to money.
Yeah, definitely.
Our
And
power.
Venus there as well, kind of everybody feeling insecure financially and things. But I go back to what I said about the way to tap into this Saturn, Uranus, Mars is it's a way to stay in integrity, stay the pace, don't, just keep on the course and don't freak out, because we and many other people don't think any of this is ultimately going to stick. Unfortunately, there will be suffering, but we have to just keep.
It is
fighting.
absolutely a moment in time that is going
Mhm.
we're going to be looking at a very different world 6 months from now.
Yeah.
So but it's frightening, but
Mhm.
especially, here's that Mars in the 8th in Cancer. There can be kind of this existential fear around our country, and it's definitely being
Mhm.
activated. I know I have it. And
Mhm.
I also, when I'm in my higher self, I can remember that this is like actually a part of the deconstruction may actually be for our greater good at some point.
Mhm.
You guys just, as we talk about how important that Neptune in Aries at 0 is, right? Here it's
Yeah.
in the 4th house. Think about
Yeah.
Neptune and Aries, when people talk about the Civil War and how this can be somewhat of a repeat of that. Well, was the Civil War a bad thing? Like at the end of the day, like it was necessary to move our country away from something that was so barbaric. And I
And
think
and
that's
we're already in that war anyway.
absolutely my guess. And they were before too,
Yeah.
when Neptune was in Pisces prior to
Mm.
the Civil War. It was just the compassionate uprising and the confusion and the lies and the this and then that, the much like, there's that repeat of themes. And then it was action. It was like, we can no longer sustain this. So this is part of that action.
And I saw a lovely post actually that kind of reflects where it could go, and something Kathy and I have talked about, and it refers to that deep state thing in the Pentagon as well that people have mentioned. Somebody posts, this is the ideal of how it ends. The Joint Chiefs of Staff gather, they march up to the White House and everything, and arrest all these people and send them off to Guantanamo, and that's kind of like the military stepping in. So when civil war is mentioned, it may not be the same as the last civil war. It may be different in how it is, because I think we're overall moving into an age of air, which is ideas and ideologies, right? So I feel this one is more a battle of ideologies in many ways. So we'll see. I hope I'm right.
No, I agree with that. And I think that Pluto in Aquarius, last time the Civil War was fought, Pluto was not in Aquarius. It's a
It was
very
in Taurus. It was in Taurus. Yeah.
very different energy. And,
Mhm.
I do think that there is some things that we need to look at with the dark side of technology and
Mhm.
the billionaires that are rising up from the technology class to,
Mhm.
wield power, like all of that can't be ignored. in this
Exactly.
context, but it's a part of the story that's unfolding.
It is, yeah. So I just invite people that when we mention the word war, any astrologers, not just us, don't immediately go, oh my God, in how war's been done in the past. I just feel like this is a different kind of war, personally. Mm-hmm.
And there's some degree of optimism that things will, serve us with that
Mm,
moon
yeah.
conjunct Jupiter. There's something there,
So
And
a
that's,
couple of, well, and also
mm,
our enemies, we're just like growing enemies like crazy with
oh yeah.
Jupiter and the moon in the seventh house. Um,
Well,
I
trade war. There
yeah,
you go. We've got a trade war
we got a
already.
trade war going on.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the Saturn, Uranus, Mars configuration that Louise has pointed out. So we have Saturn restrictions in the homeland, the president putting restrictions on everybody, dancing.
Money, that Venus money.
Yeah, with Uranus in the sixth in Taurus, shaking up how finances, shaking up banking, shaking up the stock markets, taking up the normal order of doing things. And with Mars in Cancer in the eighth, this tells me somebody's making money off of this.
Oh,
That's the house of joint investments and spec, So at any rate, that's one thing.
oh, they're all of them teal. Sorry, allegedly, for entertainment purposes.
Purposes only.
They're all making money out.
Somebody shorted. They've got to have shorted. At any
Oh.
rate.
Oh, so many people. The manipulation is off the charts. So
All that Pisces is manipulation. So let me give a timeline for when we're going to see things. All right. Already within hours of the tariffs coming in, the Senate voted to remove the Canadian tariffs because of the fact that they used fentanyl as the excuse, which is nonsense. So this is going to go to the House. Will the House also vote? Will Trump then veto? We can know that he would. Would they override it? I don't know. But here's the timeline. I heard it's the same as what we discussed with the Inspector General investigation. Venus down there at 26, Pisces is going to continue her retrograde, and she will meet with Saturn at 24 Pisces on the 7th, which is the same day that Mercury stations direct. I won't be surprised if there is a vote in the House on that day, or if there's a vote and then Trump vetoes it on that day. But that's an important day. Then Venus sits there until she sits at that spot until the 17th of April. And in the middle of that time, she stations direct on the 12th. And in the middle of that time, she rules the Libra full moon at 23 Libra.
Mm-hmm.
And
with the sun conjunct Chiron, incidentally.
some massive
I
healing.
like that. Yes. So I could put the full moon.
Then on the 24th, she meets Saturn again. So we've got beats. Watch for something around April 7th. Watch for something around the full moon. Watch for something around the 17th. And then watch for something around the 24th.
Sorry. Yeah, look at this. And look at this, though, in the fifth house, kind of
speculation.
Of speculation, risks, flying too close to the sun, even almost. So, I think just this is not over, as we keep saying, And I know everybody's like, I got another comment going, well, is it ever going to come out that the election was stolen? And I'm like, we've been trying to say how complex this is, and this is a process. And, yes, things are coming out from, but from organizations that are looking at the data and things are going to shift.
I think when Saturn moves into Aries, we're going to have another kind of uncovering, accountability. Like I'm sort of like Neptune moving to the Aries was like the beginning, right? It's the beginning of the new cycle. And so now we've got, when we have Saturn moving
It's
in.
like sudden clarity, it feels like Saturn into Aries, like bing, oh my God.
Right. And much more accountability, much more like hard work, like getting to work, like we can see what we need to do. I think that that's going to be really, really a shift in energy, even more so maybe than the Neptune, because the Neptune's such a slow moving transit. The same with the Pluto and Aquarius. It's like we have to realize Pluto and Aquarius 20 years, Pluto or Neptune and Aries 14 years, right? So 14, was that my correct?
13, 14, it's yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
so, but with the Saturn, you know, that's a, you know, faster moving. So there's going to be more of a, like, it's on. Like, it's on.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Saturn moves into Aries at the end of May.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, all of it's a process again as well. And this period with Venus and Mercury retrograde in almost the same degrees, moving from Aries back into Pisces, and having the last Aries eclipse and a Virgo Pisces eclipse contained in that period, and lunar maximum and solar maximum, has been the biggest kind of container of shifting consciousness, shifting sands, shifting everything that probably we've ever seen in many ways, I think. And so it's a lot of it's going to emerge as we come out of this period. Eclipses unfold over months. The Venus and Mercury have to go direct and then past where they stationed retrograde. Just things are going to keep coming out, isn't what I can.
Can I interject one more quick thing?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the tariff chart, and the Jupiter moon conjunction in Gemini, you know, the interior, right? Okay, there you go. It's just fascinating to me how there, you know, Gemini cannot always see the forest for the trees. You know, there is, you know, it's very up close. It's like you know, it can be very chaotic, which obviously that rollout was so chaotic. You know, for the Geminis out there, this is not necessarily to insult you, but a shadow of Gemini is exaggerations, lies, you know, obfuscating. So, you know, here we have
or tariffing how many countries? 180 something. So yeah, that's
leaving
like
off a very important one that
yes, you noticed?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, one was missing. But the Jupiter moon in the seventh house, your seventh house is our friends, it's our partners, it's our allies. And the Jupiter moon, there's like this overconfidence, this kind of like thinking everything is all about us kind of thing. And it was really funny. I read this article where now like the Europeans are going to be making their own weapons because they're like, we can't trust our allies, you know, Gemini, we just can't, this announcement tells us we can't trust you. And we got angry and were shocked that they weren't going to be buying those weapons from us.
Yeah, I know.
It's like,
there's a
I
new
read
satellite.
something, it was like, these people aren't serious, are they? Like, that was like the headline was like, you know, we lecturing them that like, you know, it's time for them to pay their fair share, but we're angry that they're not paying their fair share by buying our machinery.
I know it doesn't make sense, any of it, but yeah. Yeah. And I just noticed, I mean, I never, these are times I don't usually look, but we've got this aspect from the moon on that day to Pluto in Aquarius, which is a sesquisquare. Okay. But I quote Rick Levine to say there are no minor aspects. This is an activation in air of ideas. And so it's going to change the direction as well, what all of this, you know, to that Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto's revealing the shadow of the plutocrats and all that kind of stuff as well.
And that South Node in Virgo up on the midheaven, you know, I mean, it really can't be ignored that this is, again, somewhat karmic and a part of like how people see the world.
It is, and you know, the US is having a big reckoning, so it's a karmic reckoning for the whole of the US. But anyway, Shall we go to Hegseth and then finish with the apparent leader?
Well, do you want to look at him with the Inspector General chart over, I mean, the IG, or go on?
Which look at who was
It's the Hegseth would be
Hegseth,
talking
yeah.
about, we've already talked about the
Mhm.
Inspector General investigation starting.
Yeah, I can look at I can put them next to each other. So Inspector General, I'll let you either of you take the lead on that, apart from the fact I see that the moon was right on his Venus, right then, yes, and Jupiter on his sun. Whoa. I hadn't had a chance to look at this, so Kathy had looked
Well,
at
the March 15th lunar eclipse, when this particular chat happened and the bombing happened, was had the moon on his Saturn. Yeah. So is he the one that's going to take the fall for this? I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But
it's definitely revealing things like finding out he had a Russian email address and things like that.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Is there anything you want to say about this, Deb?
I mean, I guess I'd never looked at his chart before, and I'm so nodally focused. Just looking at the Aquarius in the second house is like he's just the outsider, very insecure. So that's fascinating to me. And I guess like the Neptune is on his moon in the third house, so like mistakes, communication, like can't see clearly. Also just Neptune on his moon, like the high end of that, like that doesn't mean anytime you have a Neptune on your moon, it's a bad thing. But it's spiritual, it's a spiritual awakening, and it's like creative awakening. And so that's not necessarily what we're seeing. I guess we're seeing some creativity play out, but kind of not. I think that this is a lot of times when you have a Neptune transit, a major Neptune transit, it's not an active thing that you participate in. It's kind of like things are happening. You're getting awakenings, you're getting messages, your, creativity is bubbling up in you. But it also can be that you are just asleep and like you are delusional and you do not see what's really happening right before you. And
or over medicating yourself. That's another way through Neptune transit sometimes. Over medicating yourself, numbing out.
Numbing out with alcohol and drugs and and really just not actively seeing what the reality of a situation is. And his Pisces moon, I mean, that's just who he is. Pisces moon is an escapist on the shadow end of things. So, I'm not seeing a lot of the the non-shadow, but that's my bias.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we are. I think he's still, numbing out. Personally, I do, allegedly. But he's on his own journey, and maybe all of this coming out will be his awakening. And when Neptune goes back into Pisces later this year, we'll see.
Yeah, a lot of overcompensation, though, I see. So, for a pretty sensitive person, probably. But
yeah, I think he's very sensitive, which is probably why he is got that kind of addictive kind of personality as well. Not just the 12th house, but the moon. Not that everybody who's Pisces in 12th house is an addict, but a lot of them have those escapist tendencies. So, of some way. Yeah. Yeah. Almost feel sorry for him. He's not, I almost feel a bit sorry for him because he's not up for the job, but he's intimately tied into the US chart and Donald Trump's chart and things. He's almost like a useful idiot for what's happening. Yeah.
100, yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Kathy. What did you?
Oh no! I'm not. Can we end with how the mini grand trine might be playing out? And also, what do you think that means for this weekend? with all of the protests that are planned
Mhm.
with that
Okay,
going
well, let's have a look at just the what time of the well, I guess they're all different places in different times. So, but well, I mean, look at this. Uranus, I'm going to add Algol in if it's okay,
I think
because
it's the 5th, isn't it?
on.
it's the
Yeah,
fifth
but
for
today's
the
when the Mars Saturn trine is exact with both of them sextiling
Gotcha. Thank you.
Uranus.
but it's almost at the exact midpoint of his Saturn Venus. So I'm just adding Algol. I feel like we need it because Algol was there the last time that when Mars and Uranus had their conjunction. So there's Algol coming up. But anyway, so for him, his Saturn Venus conjunction is definitely a shall we say, a weak spot in his chart in many ways, about women and about many things. A lot of his kind of wounds that he acts out are contained in that. I think Mars is activating that like at the midpoint almost exactly. Uranus has just gone over his midheaven again. And I think we've seen him both being the wrecking ball, and as Kathy says, the wrecking ball's coming back for him because it went back over. And again, it might not all happen on the day though, but I think things will come out. And Saturn over here with all of this, I always knew that this was going to be a big problem for him. The Saturn retrograde in Pisces in this house, and all of these things piling up. They've all squared his sun nodes again and his moon, but now they're coming up to, well, they're trining this Venus Saturn as well. It could be a woman coming back as well. Oh, guess who's back in the news and speaking? Harris.
Yeah.
Anyway. She's out there saying we told you this would happen if he was elected. She's speaking up again. So the protests, all kinds of things. Oh, look at the moon today. But anyway, the moon is going to come up tomorrow. In fact, let's get that. The moon, the people, is going to conjunct that Mars and activate that mini grand trine that I just talked about.
Yeah, and that Saturn Venus, like you said, activation, that's the falling approval. That's his polling numbers, tanking. I was watching the Bulwark. Louise and I were bonding about having our crush on Tim, and but Sarah Longwell was talking about we need to get him to he needs to be at like 32% approval before there's this major shift, and like all of this is working toward that. I have every belief that that's coming.
And this bodes really well for huge numbers of people tomorrow.
Just look at this. Oh, it does. Huge numbers of people saying, no, we're not doing this. We're rising up in all kinds of ways. I think it's about more than just a march, to be honest. I think there's like mass protests everywhere, but people protesting in other ways or taking a stand in other ways. But look at this whole thing, like the moon is the people in mundane astrology, and tomorrow it meets Mars. This, I know this is set for Salt Lake by transit. So that is actually at the time the protests here are happening. I know that. So it probably is when you convert that for everywhere else. It's trying that Saturn Venus conjunction that's almost exact, and Mercury almost there as well, and it's all connecting to his midheaven, his public presence, Venus guided or ruled public presence.
So let me throw a couple of possibilities out with this. One, Mars is traveling, as I said, Mars is traveling over territory that it was in mid to late October and early January. And when it was traveling, when it hit the Saturn and Venus in Cancer in his 11th house, this is Trump org money to me. This is family money. and it's like whatever he's paid into Congress. So when Mars hit that spot in October, Stormy Daniels came back into the news, and her attorneys revealed that as she was settling some attorney's fees that she owed him, his attorneys offered to settle it for nothing if she signed a lifetime agreement to never discuss him again publicly, ever. And that was a campaign violation. That's a campaign finance violation. Same as what he did first time around. And I mentioned this to Andy Brewer, who people miss. And Andy said, oh, that's not clanging for me. Well, it clanged for me, and it's coming around again. So don't be surprised if Stormy Daniels shows up in the news again. And secondly, Venus and Saturn together in the seventh house of allies and open enemies. Oh, I don't know. What powerful woman might be teeing something up to get him? Is it Letitia James? Is it the governor of Maine? Is it all of these people together? Is it the head of the International Criminal Court? Somebody.
Is it Harris? Remember,
Is it
she
Harris?
she was believed to have been mouthing "Justice is coming" at the inauguration as she walked in, according to deaf lip readers.
There are many women who could run. So just watch, all right? So we've got millions of people in the streets, but watch to see which women come into public discourse.
And as well, Algol, that's Medusa, that's scorned women. This is almost exactly aspecting his natal position of Algol, which doesn't move much, of course, because it's a fixed star. It moves a degree every 72 years from our perspective. But we saw the conjunction of Mars and Algol and Uranus back when there was the shooting that at one of his events. So, but it's got that beheading kind of reputation, but that can mean in many ways. Heads will roll, kind of, not necessarily like in the French Revolution way, but heads will roll.
Algol is squaring his Mars for the foreseeable future. It does not move quickly.
Oh yeah. No, it does not move quickly. No, and all this really is aspecting his Mars as well. So, yeah, and again, does that mean it'll happen on the day? I don't know, but I doubt it. But as Kathy mentioned, Eris is also involved. She stands up for outsiders. She was definitely, in the myth, she kind of went to the wedding of the elites and kind of rolled the apple of discord to create chaos amongst the elites because she was excluded. And I always see Eris as taking a stand for the outsiders, which is very much her role, I think, in this. She's Xena, the warrior princess, in another way too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the Jupiter is on the nodes in a similar way with Cory Booker, right? And so again, it's just like it's a destiny activation. And they're like, I don't care if your car costs more. Let them eat cake, right? Like there is that kind of parallel of just, and today, while the stock market's crashing for a second straight day, somebody went to play golf. And
I know he's at one of those Saudi
has nothing on his schedule but dinner at his palace.
And that's very Eris, that really is. And
it really is. That's what made me think of it when you were talking about Eris. I was like, oh wow, God, that is so like.
But then the
like not seeing it coming, not seeing the brewing desperation or anger.
And then conversely, at the protests, it's all the tax the rich, and at all the town halls, the tax the rich kind of signs and chants. So, I still think this is the death knell, the last gasp, if you like, of the patriarchy, the oligarchy, whatever you want to call them, the way the ruling elites, like in general, that have kept coming back, not just in the USA, but everywhere, and they've come back big style since the 80s when Saturn and Uranus were conjunct in 88. So, and I think they're clinging on with their fingernails. But like you said, I think they're also very unaware of kind of how it's stirring the people.
Well, one weird byproduct, we had social media accounts for orcas sinking yachts. And then last summer, Cats on a Couch came into being. And now there are tremendous number of penguin social media accounts.
Oh, I know. I love that. Can you believe it?
Because we've sanctioned an island that is inhabited by penguins. That's why. Okay. So the penguins and the cats on the couch are talking to each other.
And I've not had chance to look at all the reports about it, but there's reports coming out about how they calculated these tariffs just based on like really stupid things, and they think they may have just put it into AI to calculate it. So it's just
More to the story, folks. Lots more to the story. Anybody who's going to be out this weekend, please keep your wits about you. Be safe. Have people know where you are, and just pay attention. Just pay attention, especially if you're in DC. That's the one area where I would personally have concern about what stupid orders are already in effect. But we do this. You guys get to the streets. We applaud you, but this is what we do.
And I kind of know it's very revolutionary energy as well on the streets. But a client of mine, client, whatever, she did a short, because she's an astrologer too, about the Leo generation, which brings me back to something you mentioned, Dabney, that, they are kind of out there leading the protests, the Pluto in Leo generation, that is, the boomers. And she said, now it's our job to kind of protect those younger ones, because, they are going to be pinged. There's going to be counter protesters trying to get you to riot and things, so that who can bring in violence against the protesters. So keep your wits about you. If you're of the older generation, please just give that wise elder hand for the younger ones, saying, no, we've got to come out and just protest for something. Anyway, Dabney.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been struck by the people who are showing up to the town halls are the Pluto and Leo boomer generation, and the people who are leading the car protests. Like, you look and that's who they are. And so it's really interesting, because I think younger generations, I'm not Pluto in Leo, I'm Pluto in Libra, but
I'm Virgo.
Younger than me are they don't know what take to the streets is. That's not their world. The streets are, their world, what is online. And so they're, we are not seeing necessarily their protest, but their protest is different. It's a new generation of protest, and I think it's all needed. And I think there's some truth to that like, what are the optics if you were like, big old hose or something like on a bunch of like boomers, right? Like, it's not the same as, it's a different, I think it's really cool that the Pluto and Aquarius is activating to the older Pluto and Leo generation, just that opposition. It's like, kind of bringing them back to like, yeah, we're taking to the streets, we're taking our power back.
And a lot of it's the Pluto in Scorpio as well, which of course is squared by the Pluto in Leo. And, they're all kind of speaking to each other now. And I think it's, trying to kind of support each other and say, we can work to do this together now, instead of like, the whole old boomer thing, which, was a thing.
Well, I think that there's some boomers who should take account for their role, but I don't think it's all, right? Like, there's not these broad strokes, right? The number one generation to vote for, he should not be named, is mine. the men of Pluto and Libra. So
Well, they were brought up in a different time, the boomers, basically. It was boom time, which is why it was, So, yeah, maybe they should. I don't know if we should hope.
I just give them credit. I'm just saying, like, I think that that's a necessary piece to this. I don't think it's the whole. And a lot of people are like, why aren't people taking to the streets? And it's like, well, there's a reason. Like, we also know what's coming. Like, we know, there's kind of maybe there's some strategy behind the fact that, like, they're itching for a reason to clamp down, but maybe it's just cosmic and people are pulled in the direction they're pulled because we are participating in this great big cosmic experiment.
And the Pluto in Leo recognize the goodness of some of the things that were created, like the social security.
And it's coming back too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, so maybe their accountability is getting out there saying we've got to preserve this and save it. Really, that's it. They don't need to be held accountable in like, oh, it's your fault. I think they are doing it by saying this is the good and we should preserve it. So, yeah. I'm Pluto in Virgo. I'm very much like, come on, let's all be,
Just get down to work and fix it.
We're all human. Just do the right thing. Oh, Kathy. Kathy's Pluto in Leo.
I'm a late boomer. My classmates are heading to the streets. I've been seeing all kinds of email exchanges of what cities they're going to.
Lovely.
Which is great. Last week I was in a little town in upstate New York, Warwick, New York, which is a weird mix of very wealthy white supremacists and people that look like they're left over from the 60s. And I was outside the post office. There was this gigantic line of old people all holding signs about Social Security. So those would have been boomers. And it was like the first protest I saw. They were just moving down the street, a cluster of them, all with their Social Security and Medicare signs. I went,
They're making a difference, they're paying attention. And
yeah.
also, I mean, they've made a difference in someone's stock price. So
and maybe that's their atonement, because Venus in Pisces is kind of very much about atonement, at one-ment. So all coming together, recognizing how all this, anyway. It's a word I've used in my Venus class a lot. For Venus, it comes up. So I think we have to forgive each other for the mistakes of the past. Maybe not the leaders, but the people. Yeah. As long as we do the right thing now and come together. Anyway, Dabney, last words.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
It's so fun to be here with y'all, and I appreciate it.
I love that we're kind of all on the same page, and I kind of love that we're all in these different Pluto generations, to be quite honest. It brings that whole different flavor to it.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Kathy?
Be safe, everybody. And do notice, I want you, if you find your spirits flagging, I want you to remember Monday into Tuesday. I want you to remember seeing one man stand for more than 25 hours and not lose his voice and be supported by men and women, and how you felt and how people kind of woke up. That's where we're heading. Do not let anyone pour water on that. That's what's going on. That's where we're heading. Yes, there's a lot still to work out, but that is real and it's in you too. And go with that spark. When you feel it guiding you, follow it.
Go watch it on YouTube if you need a bit of your cup filling.
I think the word is ignition. Like there's something is igniting right now. The flame is not full, but there's like the pilot light's been ignited.
Yes.
Good one. I like that pilot light. See you next time, everybody.